name is Shamananda, and I'd really love to introduce you to my John Atkinson. Hello, John.
Hi everyone. Hi, hi everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are back. I know we took a few weeks off or so, back with all of you, and thank you so much for your support. If this is your first time tuning in, go ahead and check out some of our prior episodes on incredible topics about the four bodies. Especially we were starting out on the physical body. Today we're going into the power of self love. And this is the deep dive podcast. So, super excited to be here with you, Guru, share the space. And most importantly, is to raise the awareness, raise the consciousness of the collective, serve the collective in so many different ways through this. I wanted to start out with this question: is what does self love mean to you?
Wow, what does self love mean to me? My goodness. Well, self love for myself would be completely unconditional. And it would mean falling in love with every aspect of myself. So, everything that I've ever done wrong, everything that I'm ever going to do, everything that I feel like I've done right, and then realizing that right or wrong doesn't even exist anyway, but just falling in love with all the aspects of everything that I've ever done, everything that I am now, and everything that I'll ever be, and doing so unconditionally. Meaning, if I feel like something isn't, I'm not going to sit here and judge myself and think, okay, well, maybe today my hair isn't perfect, or and then I'm going to rip myself apart for that or something like that. I'm going to love myself in the moment unconditionally, because I love me, as opposed to, well, I guess I'll love myself if maybe I look prettier tomorrow, I can love myself. Maybe if I get that new outfit, I can love myself. Maybe if I eat right tomorrow, I can love myself, or go to the gym, or just if I follow a certain amount of tasks or whatever would make me feel like I have some sort of worth. None of that is what self-love is, in my opinion, towards me. I would say that I completely am in love with me, and I give myself that love every day. I don't judge myself. I don't I don't say mean things to myself. I completely support myself. I am my biggest cheerleader in my brain, and I do it in a way that's kind and sweet and loving. And but at the same time, if there's things I get to grow on, I'm firm, and I do so in a very loving manner. I treat everyone in my life the same way. So, once you start doing that to yourself, you have this ability to do it to everybody else, which is really beautiful. So, there you go.
So good, Guru. I like the part where you say about the judgment. I think so many times people judge themselves so harshly. I know at times I would do that for myself, and through your teachings of learning what is our pillar. And I think that's sometimes the most important missing puzzle piece in people's lives is what is their pillar? What are they operating from that they can anchor into at any moment? And like you said, what are the thought processes? What are the patterns? And the self love journey starts with how have you healed your trauma? How have you dealt with things that have happened in your life? But how are you being in the eternal moment? And so for me, I think it just goes back to what you've taught me always from day one is, John, how are you being unconditional love to yourself, so then that can radiate outward? And that really changed my paradigm, because coming from a sporting background where you are highly critical of your performance, and I think many times when people do not have the experiences of playing a sport at a high level, whether that's college, whether that's professionally, sometimes that self critique can be there. But I feel like being a former athlete, it heightened it so much more. I was critiquing myself so much more. And through a lot of work leading up to, working with you, it had gotten better. But really, you shifted me into a higher residency of consciousness and a higher alignment with my higher self. So I feel like self love for me is, and similar to what you've taught me, is okay, whatever this present moment, does it align with my pillar one, or does it align with the highest being of self? And so we have options. So, like, for example, how we nourish ourselves through food, our decisions, our relationships, our jobs, so many things that entail our life journey or life in the 3D is coming back to how we love ourselves. So I love that answer, Guru. And you've helped me so much with my journey of self love. And I think self love is such a journey part. It's never a destination, just like healing, just like so many things. Once you think you've arrived with your self love, there's so many other layers, there's so many levels. There's sometimes triggers where we have to go back around and to address certain things. So the battle, I want to ask you this, the battle of the soul and the ego in relationship to self love runs deep. And at times, our ego takes us away from our self love, from the soul based on decisions. How does someone get back on track to loving themselves more? So, to rephrase that is, sometimes a lot of people lead with their ego. They might even be aware of their ego and they've strayed away from their self love. How do you coach people back onto a track of self love?
Wow. So that's an excellent question. And I think it differentiates from person to person, depending on where they're at and why they don't love themselves. But I guess I could bring up some of the more common things that people go through. For one, I feel like people, they decide that they're not worthy, for one. They're not worthy to receive love or to love somebody else, really. So and they don't know how to love themselves. And it's just, when it comes to unconditional love, it's a bit of a stretch of the mind from everything that we've learned here in our society. Because we learned that conditional love is the way to get things and the way to teach our kids and the way but it's not, it doesn't really benefit us as a society. So because that's all based on conditions, right? So we're if we're conditionally going to only give people something that feels good based upon if you're getting what you want from them, I mean, it's not really, I mean, it's not truly how you should be treating yourself, and it's not truly how you should be treating other people. So if somebody comes into my office and they say something to the effect of, well, I don't know how to love myself, can you teach me? The very first thing I check on is to see, you know, how they're treating themselves. So are they trying to treat themselves with any kind of love? Are they, and self-care is the basics. It's not, if you do a Google search on how to love yourself, all they'll do is talk about self-care. Like, go and have a spa. I don't know, a massage. Go get your, if you're a woman, go get your nails. Well, men like get how to love yourself. These are just doing nice things for yourself. It's an aspect, sure, but it's not the total. It's not the total aspect of what you should be doing in order to love yourself completely. You need to be aware of your thoughts, how you're treating yourself, how you're talking to yourself. That's number one, because that's where it all begins, is how you're privately thinking about yourself, and also noticing how if you're doing the exact same things to others in the moment. So maybe you're judging yourself for, I don't know, anything, like your weight or the way you look, or maybe you didn't do that great on your schoolwork or your job or something, and then you're beating yourself up for it, and then you're beating up everybody else for it that doesn't do a good job too, in your opinion. I mean, these are different things you should notice. So a lot of it, some of it's the mental body and the mental patterns you go into with yourself. I mean, are they effective for you? And if they're not, then we start going in there and starting to change them. So like, why do you go into a self beat up pattern in this, in when it comes to this specific thing? Does it come from childhood? Does it come from something that you learned from your parents? And if that's the case, then let's reparent that now so we can do something that's more effective. So that's one of the things that I look at. How are you talking to yourself when no one else is listening? You know? Are you saying wonderful and beautiful and loving things to yourself when you are by yourself, to yourself, in your head? You get to pay attention to your thoughts. That's number one. And it's something that no one ever talks about. They'll talk about, yeah, go have a spa, do some self-care, and that's loving towards yourself. That's not it, guys. That's not it. That's not
Mhm.
it. The internet is cursed. It's ridiculous. you know it's if you're treating yourself like garbage in your mind, but you're going to a spa, what difference does it make? Like, it's just, it's what kind of self-abusive behaviors are you going through, and are you treating yourself in a way that is loving? Like, are you giving yourself the types of foods that will support yourself, and or are you using food as a way to abuse yourself? Are you drinking a lot because you know it's hurting you? Are you smoking a lot because you know it's hurting you? Are you doing it on purpose to hurt yourself? These are the different types of things you should be looking at. You know? If you know going to the gym is important for your health because the doctor told you and you're not going, are you not going because you don't love yourself? Are you not going because you just don't feel like it? Well, that's the just don't feel like it story. Is there's something deeper always. It's not just a I don't feel like it. There's something beneath that, and it should be looked at. And usually it has to do with the fact that you're complacent because you don't love yourself enough to do something about it, and you feel like that's what you deserve. So that's a part of it. So recognizing the patterns and being really honest about what they mean so that you can get to the core root of things and then make a new decision so that you can start loving yourself instead. But everyone has a different story. So what your story is going to be different from the next guy beside you. So we got to look at all the details to figure out what the puzzle is.
I enjoyed when you said more than surface level, because I think with our society, we, like you were saying, self love, it's like go get a massage, get your nails done, things of that nature. But it's such more in depth with our four bodies and how our stories have been cultivated up to that present eternal moment, and what our relationship to self is. And I don't think in our society people have that introspection at times where it's, hey, this self love is more conditional for my life than unconditional. And what I mean by that is what you brought up is like, okay, I feel bad, I'm going to go do this. And it's a conditional decision rather than unconditional for the opposite way of the behavior of, I'm going to say no to that to align myself with a higher part of my self love and um, higher self to really connect with that and really sit with that. And I think for me, you help me with my self love is, and what we're talking is the ego and the soul. So the soul is always such pure, loving awareness, pure, unconditional love. And we all have the ego. And so until our ego surrenders to the soul plan, it's such a fight, such a battle. And my aha moment with you with my self love was allowing my soul's desire and allowing my soul purpose, my soul contract, whatever we want to call it, in terms of what I wanted to create. I was allowing my ego to dim my light of what I can share with the world, meaning my gifts, why I'm here. And so I remember a session with you where it seemed like a major ego death, but it was really the ego fully surrendering. It was really ugly, you guys. It was definitely did not want to be in that room. A lot of, screaming and things of really allowing my soul to, be itself, and also my ego going through the pain of surrendering and know that the soul is in charge. So But that also does not mean that we can't use our ego, on the daily to, um, in a positive way as well. So I think sometimes the ego has a negative cognition, but at the same time, it's how is our relationship with our ego. So maybe you could expand on that, Guru. Why is it sometimes in relationship to self love that people might feel guilty of like their ego?
That's a good question. People have been taught that loving themselves is egotistical and that they shouldn't do it because they'll come off as arrogant. But that's not what arrogance is. So, arrogance is when you feel highly insecure and then you boost up yourself and in a combative way, in an almost no, I'm the best, because you're trying to force persona so that you can be perceived a certain way to protect your insecurity. So it's not with yourself, it's authentic, and then you don't have that weird nasty protection mechanism on the inside operating that creates that distasteful scenario of what arrogance leaves behind. People don't know the difference between the two, so they say no, you can't love yourself and be confident because then you'll be arrogant. And this is just ignorance, as to what true confidence is. True confidence and loving yourself is not about being arrogant at all. It's not about needing to shove your greatness down people's throats. I mean, I'm a confident person, and I don't think I've ever once talked about how awesome I am. Like, I just feel good
Yeah.
about myself. I don't, and I think that I've been told one of the pieces of the most often is that just there's a lot of things, but one of the things is that you're incredibly confident. And every time I hear it, I just think, oh, it's just a byproduct of understanding who I am, and I'm good with that.
Mhm.
So, but I don't come off as arrogant, and the reason for that is
Yes.
because I love myself. There is a huge difference. So don't be in that pillar of who you are. You can be there and just and there can be a humility there. There can be this beautiful softness to it. It doesn't have to come off as that disgusting, arrogant stickiness that comes out of people. So don't worry about that. Those are two different things. And in fact, loving yourself is really, really, really important so that you can love others to the highest degree possible. If anything, loving yourself causes you to be extremely humble. It's the opposite of arrogance. So don't mix up the two. I hope
So
that's.
good, Guru. I love how you said, in terms of getting those affirmations back of like confidence or things of that nature, it's that energy that you've cultivated around yourself, love, that is deeply rooted on the inside. And that's what I mean, when I first met you, that's what I felt, is this radiance of energy of this person knows themselves so well, and they love themselves so much that they want the best for my life and for the collective. And that is, I think, the true definition, you just hit on it, of self-love to the highest form of divinity, in that the arrogance is not there, and when you're getting that feedback is that humbleness. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, because that's a major thing that many people can't grasp, that concept. And so yeah, that's really good. I liked how you said that. How There's a saying, how you love yourself is how you love everything. Can you expand on that and kind of walk us through, maybe you've seen clients recently where, they're not really loving themselves and that's showing up in other areas of their life?
Yeah, yeah. Different types of personality traits are like the root of a or the root of a tree, or the trunk of a tree, and what happens when you make that decision about yourself, it creates a bunch of branches. It branches out and creates a bunch of different personality traits, but the root is still the same. So how you do one thing, how you do the root, It's how you do everything, and it's how it branches out onto a bunch of other things. So if you feel like you're not worthy, then maybe at work you'll have a hard time stepping up into leadership. Maybe at home you'll have a hard time voicing what you want from your spouse. Maybe when it comes to family, if they pick on you, you might have a hard time standing up for yourself and saying, please don't talk to me like that, you know. So there's different branches that will happen. So how you do one thing, how you decide your core is going to be, is how your branches are going to show up. So the trick is to understand what the root is, what the tree trunk is, so that you can change that, and all the branches will change all at once at the same time. So how you do one thing is how you show up when the chips are down. You're going to respect and love that when it comes to other people and the way they do it. So it'll show up in other places. It's not just going to be one, because it's how you feel. It's part of your pillar. So that's how it shows up. But there are roots. There are roots to everything. And part of breaking down your consciousness is understanding what those roots are, in order for you to be able to really start affecting a lot of different branches in your life. So there
I
you have
really
it.
like that visual. Yeah, I really like how you portrayed that visual of the roots. And I see you, and you've helped me with my roots of pruning some of those roots that have no longer served me. And I feel like, with your clients, that's your sessions is, someone comes in with a certain root. They have all these branches of different areas of their life, and you're helping them clean out their roots, their trauma, their past lives, their stories they might have, and really, like you said, their core essence, their core root of how they love themselves, where it branches out, and maybe they get to have the opportunity to cut a branch off for regrowth, or maybe a branch is dead in part of their life, and so they get to prune it back and really see new growth with some of the exercises you give your clients. And so I always think those types of visuals help the viewers so much. And a lot of your tools you've given me is like fertilizer for that tree. New roots are growing, and new branches are prospering each and every day, dependent on the capacity of our self love and the capacity of how deep we meet ourselves. And then goes around. You've always shared with me and taught me is it's mirrored back to us, you guys. It's one of those things is when you're improving your journey of self love and you're cleaning up your roots and you're expanding your branches of new growth, that comes back. And like you shared, it's like we get those compliments, we get those affirmations, and we're humbled with those. And it doesn't flame the ego. It really touches on the soul of our soul's purpose here. With your clients, Guru, with that being said, in terms of how you painted that so beautifully, is how often um, do your clients deal with self-love challenges? And then on top of that, like kind of what I shared with like growth and things of new growth or pruning things back in the people's lives, what type of exercises do you give your clients to help them work on self-love? Because I know people might be tuning in, they might be still stuck in that mindset of self-love is going out, getting a massage, going this, doing that. But as you and I both know, it goes deeper beyond the surface on that.
Yeah, that's really good. So some some of the self-love challenges I think people go through is, I think, the very the the most expansive one, the one that people struggle most with, has to do with what they learned, the habitual things that they learned when they were growing up from their family. And because that's where you learn how to create your own iconography of who you are. So, and as a kid, and I think we've talked about how neural pathways work, But up until the age of 7, you have 1,500 neurological pathways that are all firing at once. And that's the primary time where you learn how to be safe. That's what your neurological system is teaching you how to do. And then your mental body gets engaged and starts to create these patterns of habitual patterns, and they become something that you constantly want to do because your neurological system says so. It wants you to stay in those patterns to keep you safe. And then after a while, if you do it long enough, and as you grow into adulthood, as opposed to 1,500 neurological synapses that are all firing, it goes down to half. It goes down to 750. So you establish, the ones that you're using, the ones you're not using go away, and then more strength is added to the ones you're already using, to support in you continuing to revisit those pathways, because your neurological system has deemed that this is what keeps you safe because you've done it so many times and you haven't died, basically. So part of what challenges people when it comes to self-love is that if what they learned when they were creating those neurological pathways and synapses and strengthen effective in the way of self-love, okay, yeah, it might have kept you alive, but does that mean it keeps you happy? Does that mean you're loving yourself in the process? No, not necessarily. Not for a lot of people. For a lot of people, how they learned how to love themselves and their families weren't necessarily because their families were loving. Maybe they learned how to try to do it later on in life, but it was mostly about survival.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time for kids, like, am I safe? Because that's what that whole period is made for, biologically in a lot of ways. And so a lot of the self-love challenges comes down to how do we rewrite your iconography in order for you to understand how to rebuild new neurological pathways that are much more effective and safe, so that you can grow into a happier plane of existence for yourself. So that's usually what the work is. But a lot of the time, it's, I would say almost, well, not all the time, but a lot of the time, that's where it originates, where people, they get into these habits, the mental habits, and they don't know how to break out. And they carry that over
Mm-hmm.
into adulthood. And I see people as, in all stages of life. I've seen small children, I've seen babies. They haven't developed anything yet. I've seen babies, I've seen little kids, all the way up, like, so 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 12-year-olds. I've counseled a lot of teenagers, and a lot of young adults, housewives, going into older adults, going into people all the way up to, I think my oldest client was 98. so so
Wow.
it's definitely a wide berth there. And in different phases of life you have different challenges, but the self-love challenges are no joke, because it is the core of who you are, and it is the most important thing for you to learn. It's ground zero, because everything will spawn from that. If you love yourself, and you have a good strong backbone, you can build a really incredible consciousness off of that. But if you don't, you really can't build very much, because you need to have that in order to really expand. You get to uncover that as the root of who you are. It's just the way it is. And so different types of exercises, it depends on the person, but there is one that I'd actually like to offer, because it's one that's really it's really quite wonderful, and I like it a lot, and I think it will apply to almost everyone. So write a love letter to yourself. Now, the problem with this is that people, when they'll write a love letter to themselves, if they don't like themselves, it'll be I kind of like myself letter instead of a love letter, which is a challenge. So, we have you can give us the love letters, and we can look it over, and we can rewrite it and send it back and say this. So do that in the comments. If you're going to do this exercise, let us help you with that. Or
Mm.
even go to an AI, and I don't know if the AI will know what a loving letter is, but you could say, AI, can you rewrite my letter into something that's because we have that technology. So, AI, can you rewrite
Uh-huh.
my love letter to myself so it's actually really loving? I want to make sure that it's loving to myself and not kind of like myself letter. And it might be able to support. I haven't tried it. but maybe, if for some reason you don't want to send it to us, so, which you should, because we're awesome and I want to help you. But anyway, so once you have your letter, and it needs to be touching, and it gets to talk about the things that you feel like you're lacking in your life. So if you feel like maybe you're an incredibly attractive person, but you don't feel like people see you on the inside, you should talk about how beautiful you are on the inside, and how much you appreciate that about yourself, and how wonderful you think you are because of it, and how much you give to the world, and how much you deeply love people, things that are really going to touch you. In fact, I think I actually have one that I should read, because randomly in my phone, because you know, this one was actually really good. See if I can find it. Just a second. Okay. Love letter. I don't know if it would come up as love letter. Darn it. You know what? Oh, no. Oh, here's one. Oh no, that's not it. That's something else. That would have been embarrassing. Oh, here it is. Found it. So I'm not gonna give the name of this person because it's a private letter, but I'm just gonna so here's an example of a love letter. Beloved blank. Put in your name. So, and hopefully this resonates with you, and if it doesn't, you got to change it. So, you're the most beautiful person I've ever known on the inside. I love your compassion for others. I love your courage. I love your sense of humor. You dance like a goddess because you are one. You're loving, graceful, charming, and fearless. I am grateful for all that you were, all that you are, and all that you will ever be. I cherish this life because I get to spend it with you every day. Thank you for making me feel safe, loved, appreciated, and cared for. You are the light I've been searching for my whole life, and that light is brighter than the sun. I love you with all of my being, and I'm so grateful for everything that you are. I love you completely and exactly for who you are in this moment, and I always will. Love, blank. Just as an example, right? Beautiful letter, right?
So good.
And
So
so,
good.
yeah, and so every day, take that letter and look at yourself in the mirror first thing, and read it to yourself, and make eye contact, and let yourself know that this is how you're actually feeling. And if you don't feel it yet, but it's moving you, it's something you need to hear. And fake it until you make it. If you want to feel that way towards yourself, that's enough. And then eventually it'll turn into something like, no, I actually do feel like that, because the want turns into, it turns into an isness if you keep practicing it. And if you never have these thoughts about yourself and you never practice them, then they never come true. So this is how it begins. You get to practice. You get to bring the thoughts into the arena, so your unconscious mind has something to work with. But if you never do, it never comes true. It's the same with anything. It comes with abundance too. If you never think about the things that you want to create in your life, they're never going to come true. If you only ever think about the things that you don't want, you're going to manifest a bunch of those. That doesn't sound like very much fun. I would definitely spend some time to think about the things you do want. And as far as loving yourself, the love letter is a good place to start. What do you think, John?
I love that, Guru. And the love letter, I have to do an updated one. I know I did that a long time ago. I'll have to find mine back in a few journals, but it's always good to be able to update that too and see if you've gone through a lot of growth, and, you know, really be that witness of your growth journey as well. And I liked how you said about being safe, because I think in the world today, people find so much comfort in feeling safe. And at times that's at the forefront. And so when you are at a residency where self love is so intact, so grounded in your pillar, other people feel that energy, you guys, and that makes people feel safe and open up, not only to you, because we're all mirrors and we all are helping each other on this journey. It really makes someone think, oh, I could, discover more about myself. And that's what I truly think is the self-love journey, is how much, like, when I wake up, I want to hear what you think too, Guru, is like how much more can I discover about myself, right? I wasn't the same person I was when I woke up this morning up to this point, right? And I'm not the same person before this live and then after. So it's the journey of, can we be aware of our self-love and our journey that we're all on? And so I just loved how you said that, and then also just the incredible love letter. I think after a while, those affirmations are so powerful and so divine, it becomes part of us, and then we go live that out. We breathe it in, we breathe it out, and it's part of our divine eternal moments. What are some of your favorite affirmations? Obviously, we talked about the beautiful love letter to self. I know one of your favorite affirmation. I just want you to share that with everyone, and how the power of affirmations can really change your life.
Wow. Okay, so favorite affirmations. Oh my gosh, I have so many. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a couple examples. Uh, so the affirmation or the mantra that years, I would say, gosh, it must have been 20 years ago. It was never my favorite, but it was very helpful, if that makes sense. Like it didn't, I wouldn't say that I was in love with it, but it was helpful. It was very helpful. It was the most important one that I could have gotten, that I could have received. So just because you have a mantra doesn't, you don't have to love it in order for it to be the most effective thing on your, or the most effective tool in your toolbox. You know what I mean? So, and that's what it was for me. It was still really effective, but it was just kind of like a because of how I felt about it. Now let me explain why. So, my guru, long time ago, maybe 20 years ago, when I was, kind of at the beginning of everything, he said to me, I'm going to give you a mantra. This is really important. And I said, sure. And he said, I let go of the need to know. And for someone like me, who needed to know everything,
Mm,
how everything works, and how everything functioned, and the mechanics behind everything, because I'm a detail person. I need, and I still am, but at the same time, that mantra at the time was so important because I was so hungry for knowledge, but I wasn't absorbing. I needed to be starved a little bit because the knowledge that I was receiving and the way I was perceiving it was not accurate because of my consciousness. Now, understand this. If you take
mm,
away anything from this episode today, please take this away. Where your consciousness is going to completely uh it will completely be the your consciousness will dictate how you learn everything. So if your consciousness is not in a good place, how you learn everything in the world is going to be completely skewed. It's not going to be accurate at all. So if you believe that this is a dark place, you're going to sit there and gather evidence how everything is dark. If you think this is a really light place and everyone's really nice, that's the evidence you're going to gather, and that's what you're going to remember. If you feel like if you have this strong limiting belief system that is creating a lot of problems in your life, that's all the evidence you're going to gather, and that's going to be your belief system. And at the time, I was still shifting over my belief system into things that were much more effective. So at the time, I needed to let go of the need to know because my translations were garbage because of it. So that's why I needed to do that. And so let go of the need to know at that time for me was very supportive. Nowadays, one of the mantras I like to give a lot is all I need is within me now. And the reason why I really like that one is because people get to know that they're never without resources. They always have the resources right now. They don't have to stretch. They don't have to be something different. They don't have to be a better person. They don't. Everyone needs in any given moment is within them now, and they can access it immediately. So it's a really, really important mantra. So I would say that's one of my favorites right now. And finally, I would say, just for everyone too, I would say, generally speaking, I love myself unconditionally, or I am the embodiment of unconditional love, is an incredible mantra to have. so that you can start to realize what that means for you. Uh, Loving everything unconditionally, everything and everyone all of the time, including yourself, is an incredible stand to take. It's the most powerful stand you can take. And I would say it's the bravest, most courageous stand you can take too, because it means you're not going to be a doormat and you're going to be standing for that in every moment. And that's not easy. People think, no, you're going to be a pushover. That's actually not what happens. The opposite happens. You end up standing in that way, and when you see that it's not happening, it's not about justice, but it is about how do I stand in a loving way and make sure that everyone is being, what is the greatest good for the whole room, for everyone here? What gets to happen? It changes your perspective on everything. So, anyway, those are the three that I worked with. Well, I can't say that limits. That's not an extensive list. There's so many. There's hundreds, but I guess we can talk about those three. And if you have any questions, maybe I can add to it.
No, those are super powerful. And I always love how you brought up your very first one, the need to know, as I think we live in a society, a current world where people probe and people ask so many questions of needing to know rather than just respecting where people are at. And I think that's just a great reminder. And yes, my favorite one you assigned me a long time ago is, the one that's all within me now. And so I think that's super powerful, Guru, to share. And I think sometimes people don't understand that the affirmations, you guys, will elevate your consciousness, will elevate your residency. So wherever you're living at right now, we call that your residency. And so the work that you get to do, you might be here, your residency is going to, you're going to gain residency. So you're going to be operating at a new residency. And what I mean by that is your new thought process. I wrote this down. You're shifting. I loved how you said you're shifting over your belief system, right? How many times has our belief system um, impaired or taken away from the present moment, has been a block for our abundance, has gotten in the way of maybe relationships, opportunities, just so many, as we shared earlier, the branches of our life. And how our consciousness dictates the belief system. I loved how you brought that up, and that's vital. So whatever we're thinking right now, that's going to dictate what's going to be happening. We got to remember, I learned this recently, actually this past weekend, is are you an architect of your life or are you a firefighter? And the architects are the ones that we're talking about. They're upgrading their belief systems. They're in creation mode. They are looking at, what the specific landscape of their life, and they're refining things, or they're working on things. They're looking inward at their self-love journey. How can they make more impact? How can they amplify their self-love to serve the collective, on a whole different level, a whole different residency? And so that's the consciousness that we always talk about, is how are you elevating that consciousness rather than a firefighter. A firefighter is one that's reacting to what's going on, a victim with the fire hose, doesn't know where to go, has their branches all over the place, never looks at their root, is in fight or flight mode. So many things that the firefighter mindset entails. So I just wanted to share that, because when you were sharing all those cognitions, Guru, it reminded me is be the architect of your life, right? As such, I think being the architect is what, that equals self-love, and that equals what we get to do here is be in that creation state. So, so many takeaways. I know we're hitting the 1 o'clock hour here Pacific time. The we always say, or we like to end on a call to action. So we would love to hear from you all on terms of a love letter. If you want to share that with us, Guru is going to share her information at the end of this, where you could email it. Obviously, we keep your name anonymous. She gave a beautiful example of that. And then also, too, the affirmation. So choose one. Maybe you already have an affirmation. Are you consistently reading it day in and day out to start your day? Maybe you've had a tough day and you have to have it in multiple places. I know, Guru, you've assigned me that to have some in my car, maybe in my wallet, maybe written on my mirror at home, somewhere where it's visible, you guys, so you could elevate your self love, elevate your belief systems to a higher residency. So I'll end on that, Guru. Did you want? Oh, yeah. So we don't do, before I hand it over to you, we don't do any, commercials, things of that sort, or ask for anything. All we ask is if you've gotten some value from this episode or from any episode, is obviously come back next week and view the new episode. But share this with someone that you love, someone that needs to hear these messages, maybe a random stranger as well. So we're here for your growth. We're here as a safe place. So if you ever have questions, feel free to, write them in the comments, or if you want, some privacy and it's more of a private question, Guru will put her email address or best way to connect with her on that. So I'll pass it over. Always grateful, Guru, to share this space with you, to serve the collective on our deep dive podcast.
Oh my gosh, you're such an angel. Uh, yes. So I'm thinking now that listening to you talk, John, I think what we should do is just create an email address that'll go to both of us, and that we both have the login for
Okay.
access. And so I'm gonna do that at one point today, and I'll send you that, and then everyone can just email that. But for now, maybe just leave a comment for us, and then by the next episode we'll just create the email address and you can just send it and we'll both read it and we'll figure out because then you can write your questions to either of us, and we'll respond accordingly, and maybe we'll talk about you on the next episode and support you with your query, and that would be really lovely because that's what we're here for. I want you guys to know how much I love you. Put in a position where I could be of any support at all, and I think that, and I know that, and just with John too, because John is such a incredibly intuitive soul. The very first time I met him, uh, and I had lived in an ashram. So the very first time I met him, I thought this is the most spiritual person I've ever met in my life. Like, as far as a man, especially, I was so absolutely blown away. And I remember going home talking to people about it. It's like, I think I just met the most spiritual man I've ever met today.